Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are bringing some serious energy to a completely fascinating topic. We are going to break down the exact mechanics of how a massive global infrastructure empire is built literally from scratch. Based on our source material, we aren't just skimming the surface here. We're looking at the actual strategies, the bold moves, and the calculated risks that turned a small-time trading operation into a global juggernaut.
The business world is obsessed with the glamour of artificial intelligence and billion-dollar tech apps. But some of the most staggering fortunes on Earth are actually built on something far less glamorous. They are built on dirt, concrete, and coal. Most modern startups fall into a familiar trap. They launch a product and immediately enter a brutal street fight, constantly chasing volatile consumer tastes and battling over razor-thin profit margins just to stay relevant. Gautam Adani, a first-generation entrepreneur and college dropout, took a different approach. Instead of trying to build a better version of what already existed, he looked for a way to position himself where competition became irrelevant. This visualization shows the logic. Don't try to sell the fastest horse. Buy the racecourse. If you own a monolithic toll booth that every other business is forced to pass through, they essentially become your customers. This brand of toll booth economics provides a level of consistency that consumer products rarely touch. It provides the leverage needed to transition from a small-scale trader into a major industrial force. In the early days, Adani was an importer of PVC plastics, struggling with the same bottlenecks as everyone else. He'd need 20 metric tons of material, but suppliers would only release 2 at a time, effectively capping his ability to grow. It became clear that importing individual goods was a logistical headache. The real point of leverage wasn't the material itself, it was the physical edge of the ocean, the exact spot where every single import to the country had to arrive. When the government looked for regional development, Adani didn't aim for established cities. He focused on Mundra, a flooded, unusable wasteland. He convinced bureaucrats to let him develop the land by promising to build the infrastructure and provide the local jobs that the region lacked. That wasteland became Mundra Port. Today, it is India's largest commercial port, handling a massive percentage of the country's cargo, with 50% operating margins. Mundra became the backbone of his operations. By controlling a maritime choke point, he was no longer just another trader waiting for a shipment. He owned the gateway for everyone else's shipments. Once the port was secured, the natural next step was to control what moved through it. Adani wanted to expand into heavy industries, like energy and agriculture, but he lacked the specialized technical expertise and the billions in liquid capital required to do it alone. His solution was a strategy of skin in the game. He traded his local regulatory influence and infrastructure access to bring in foreign experts, structuring deals so that the partners took on the majority of the operational risk. Look at his Australian coal venture. A local owner wanted $1.5 billion for a major mine. Adani paid $500 million up front, with the rest paid out in royalties only as coal was actually extracted. This forced the Australian partner to dig the coal to ensure their own profit, while Adani secured a massive supply line for his power plants. He did the same with food. The Singaporean giant Wilmar wanted to sell cooking oil in India. Adani built the refining and packaging plants directly on his port at Mundra, cutting logistics costs to zero. In exchange, he got 50% of the joint venture. Today, their Fortune brand is a market leader, built entirely on Wilmar's refining technology. Acting as a strategic middleman allows a founder to capture value in highly technical sectors without needing to know the specifics of how to refine oil or mine coal. As the empire grew, India's booming domestic travel market seemed like an obvious target. The visible, glamorous move would have been to launch a commercial airline to capture the millions of new passengers taking to the skies. Adani rejected the idea. He noted the brutal reality of airlines, volatile jet fuel prices, and razor-thin profit margins that often hover around 2.5%. Instead, he bid to take over the operational leases for the airports themselves. Let the airlines fight over ticket prices in the clouds. He would own the ground they were forced to land on. An airport is a collection of mandatory fees. Every time a plane lands, it pays. When it parks at a gate, it pays. Cargo screening, retail shops, duty-free, and parking all generate revenue regardless of which airline is flying. The airlines take the volatility of the market, while the airport extracts guaranteed fees from a captive audience. In this model, consumer choice becomes irrelevant to the bottom line. This creates a chain reaction called sector assimilation. Owning infrastructure at this scale dictates the acquisition of the next piece. Owning ports makes it easy to import coal. Importing coal makes it logical to build power generation plants. And since building power plants and national highways requires massive amounts of raw material, he bought out the cement giants Ambuja and ACC. He captured the supply just as the government launched an $11 billion highway building boom. This exact progression was a systematic capture of the foundational building blocks a developing nation requires to function. This model eventually faced a major stress test. A recent short seller attack caused a massive stock plunge and a wave of global public backlash. Despite the pressure, the empire rebounded. The group received a clean bill of health from regulators and saw its market cap climb back past $215 billion. The reason for this resilience is the nature of the assets. Unlike a speculative digital tech company that can disappear overnight, Adani's wealth is anchored in physical, cash-flowing infrastructure. A country cannot physically function which it turns off its ports and power grids. Long-term wealth is rarely built by being the flashiest participant in a crowded market. It is built by doing the capital-intensive work required to become the market itself.
Now, obviously, building an empire of this massive scale brings some really intense scrutiny. Our source maps out the timeline of the Hindenburg event quite neutrally, just to illustrate market resilience. Back in January 2023, a short seller report kicked off extreme market volatility, which actually led to a massive 70% drop in share prices. However, because the empire's debt was heavily backed by tangible, secured infrastructure assets, we're talking about all those massive ports and power plants, they managed to weather the storm. Following regulatory clearance from CBI in May 2024, the market cap recovered, officially crossing right back over that staggering $215 billion mark. So, having decoded this blueprint, from sitting quietly on first-class trains to absolutely dominating national logistics, it leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. As the whole world transitions into new energy and digital infrastructure, how will this exact same aggressive scaling and partnership strategy apply to the next decade? I invite you to keep exploring these mechanics with us because the strategies of empire building, they are constantly evolving. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a like, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. See you in the next one.